Welcome. I am unmuted now. Yes, indeed. Labor Day matinee edition of Joe and the Fat Man, the first post game edition of Joe and the Fat Man for what looks to be quite the 2025 season for Penn State football, to put it mildly. But Nevada is over. FIU is next. Joe Smeltzer, Kyle Fatman Golik, Nittany Sports Now here with you. And we talked about Nevada on the field at Beaver Stadium after that 46-11 win Saturday. Those were our immediate thoughts, which you can check out on Nittany Sports Now's YouTube channel. But now that we've both rewatched the game, I did it Monday morning. I don't know when you did, Kyle, but that's what I spent my Labor Day morning doing. What were some things that stuck out to you that maybe you didn't catch live Saturday, or that you did catch but didn't think about extensively until watching it back on TV?
So, my biggest takeaways from it that I saw from the CBS broadcast versus the up in the sky in the box there at Beaver Stadium was how much time Drew Aller and how much of a pocket that he had. You know, typically when you're watching, it's from the box. You're much more excited. You're looking at things. You're not really, it's there's like that dulled down sense when you're watching it on TV, and it just felt like he had all day to throw, which just shows how phenomenal the offensive line was. I mean, all of his throws, Joe, seemingly were accurate and on time. Again, we can argue the merits of the Lee and Clifford attributed drop there. But even if you take that off the table, I think Drew was 22 for 26. I mean, grant you, Nevada is not a good team, but that's where you want it to be. You know, I'm pulling up the game book right now from the game here, and Pena was 7 for 8. Hudson was 6 for 8. Tysier was 2 for 2. Clifford was 0 for 2. And Devontae Ross was 1 for 1. Very high percentage right there. So that was number one. Number two, and this is something James alluded to that we'll hit on in a bit. Eni White found a home there at defensive tackle when he got in there. And I figure that's going to be a very huge thing down the line, because having that depth, remember, James said at Big Ten Media Days, and he's kind of said, you want to have 2 to 2.5 times what you absolutely need. And if you're looking at the defensive tackle position, that is 5 all day. The last thing is how much of a dynamic player Trevor Pena is. I mean, nearly had 100 yards from scrimmage, Joe. You know, this is a guy that I feel Andy Kotelnicki's going to use a lot. He reminds me a lot of how Tyler Warren was a season ago and how he's used in multiple ways. I'm not saying Trevor Pena is going to be a fullback or snapping the ball in the situation, but I see a lot of creativity coming that way. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I'll hit on the quarterbacks first, because that was the first question James Franklin was asked in his Monday presser, which we'll get to in the next segment. But he was asked to evaluate the play of Drew Aller and Ethan Grunkemeyer, and his take was probably similar to mine and yours take on it. Drew Aller was Drew Aller. He was efficient, as you mentioned, only to 4 incompletions. It wasn't perfect, and James Franklin mentioned some of those imperfections. There was that one play pass to Kyron Hudson in the end zone that should have been a touchdown. He ended up throwing it a little behind him in the traffic, and he was lucky it wasn't intercepted. There was a play, I think it was in the third quarter, not sure the exact time, where it was Aller decided to run the ball and he didn't get down quite quick enough. That's something that Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson talked about on the broadcast too. It's like, hey, Penn State's going to need this guy for what they hope is going to be a 16-game national championship season. They can't have him hurting himself running the football. There's a lot of risk there. One play that I posted to Twitter that and we're not going to debate this too much because it's really not that big a deal, but a play that hit Trevor Pena on the hands but was also a little behind them, that was in the second quarter. I polled Penn State fans. Some didn't think it was a drop. Some thought it was a drop. Some thought it was 50-50. Kyle, you thought it was a drop, but you can see the play on my Twitter account, Joe Smeltzer 775, to judge for yourself. But yeah, in any case, Drew Aller was efficient, didn't turn the ball over. that's really all you could ask for a game like Nevada. Talking about Ethan Grunkemeyer, James Franklin was very complimentary of him, said that Grunkemeyer was actually better during the game than he had been at times in practice. He led a 96-yard scoring drive that ended with a
94.
touchdown, and that's pretty good stuff from your QB2. And I think there was talk over camp about who's going to be the backup between Grunkemeyer and Jackson Smolik. I think that answer is pretty clear, even if James probably won't admit it publicly throughout the season.
Yeah, that 94-yard drive, Joe, was the longest Penn State has had since their 97-yard drive in the Big Ten championship game against Oregon. When you can have backups come in there and drive literally the length of the field. I mean, Cam Wallace had that nice hurdle. Rapp had that real nice reception there. That's showing quality depth. It was amazing to me watching the youngins get in there and really show, hey, we're not going to miss a beat if we need to step up into the starting role.
Yeah, and one of the youngins you mentioned, you didn't mention, I'll mention him as a guy on defense. And a play that really stuck out to me that I didn't notice from the press box, Darius Dixon's tackle on a kickoff return in a 27-point game in the second half. That impressed me for two reasons. It wasn't so much the play itself, but, Kyle, you think about guys getting down there and making tackles on special teams. You think these are people that are going to use special teams as a gateway to get into the starting lineup on offense or defense. We've seen that. Dom DeLuca is a great example recently. But Darius Dixon isn't that type of guy. He's a guy that's going to play a lot as a freshman and is going to start, you would think, at the latest in 2026. He doesn't really have to put in all that effort on special teams to find his way into the starting defense, but he did anyway. And that really speaks a lot to the mentality of Darius Dixon, who's a player that this coaching staff has raved about all spring and all summer and into the start of the season.
Yeah, I'm that knife tackle. James messaged it post game. He mentioned it just a little bit ago here. This kid is everything that has been hyped up for. When you can see it live for yourself, you start to go, wow, this kid is special beyond belief. And I think when we start saying special, Joe, maybe a good segue here, Deny continues to keep up that furious pace. I mean, Joe, I was on Twitter yesterday, and I think it was Basic Blues that was talking about, maybe he should have been the number 11. And I know our friend over at Locked On, Zach Sako, chimed in on it too. You know what, Joe? The way Denye's played, I'm not going to I'm not trying to overrate Nevada here, but you look at what he did against Notre Dame and filled up the stat sheet. He did it again against Nevada. If Deny has the type of season that he's doing that game after game, this may sound blasphemous, but he might make a challenge with a guy that Penn State fans listen to on the radio week after week with Steve Jones for the contender for the best 33 in Penn State history.
That's a bold claim, and we can talk about that a lot more. Yeah,
It's
that's
very
tough.
bold.
Yeah.
But coming off that edge, two forced fumbles. Last guy to do it was Micah back in the Cotton Bowl. He is going to be a menace. I think it's ultimately with Deny is, okay, we saw what she did in the Fiesta Bowl against Boise State. We saw what she did against Notre Dame in the Orange Bowl. Obviously, Nevada is there. But if you continue that, what do you do against Ohio State? What do you do against Oregon? Those are going to mean a lot more, and plus a lot of bigger games down the line. Again, premature, but if he continues this furious pace, he will be in that conversation.
Absolutely, and we talked about Deny during our post-game show Saturday, and he's someone that everybody noticed right away while watching the game. But one thing I will say is I'm thinking of Deny, and I said this about Taki Wheatley too, another defensive player during the offseason, is Tyler Warren-esque vibes on defense for me. And what I mean by that is you think about Tyler Warren's journey at Penn State. He got here in 2020. Freiermuth was there 2021 and 22. Brendan Strange and Theo Johnson were there. 2023, Theo was still there. And Tyler Warren was never the clear number one tight end until year 5, and we all saw what happened last season when Tyler got that opportunity and more than took advantage of it. Then I've done something kind of similar, right? He gets there in 2022, 23. Chop Robinson and Adisa Isaac are the two defensive ends. Last season, Denai was one of the two starters, but obviously Abdul Carter commanded a lot of the attention. Now he's in year 4, and last year, Tyler Warren's real coming out party was against Bowling Green week 2 when he broke the single game tight end receiving yards record for Penn State. Then Dennis Sutton had a big coming out party week 1. Is this going to be a defensive version of Tyler Warren? We'll see. But that's going to do it for the first segment of Joe and the Fat Man. We said enough about Penn State, Nevada. Let's start to talk about Penn State, Florida International, and more of what James Franklin said in his second weekly press conference of the 2025 season.